Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel. And on this channel we'll talk a lot about how to create comics because this is something that I'm constantly focused on and really passionate about. And I'm sharing with you everything I learned after creating comics for more than 6 years. But we'll also talk a lot about art, how to create art, how to enjoy art, and how to do art professionally and earn money with your art, because there is also something that I've been doing all my life. So in this video we're gonna talk about very high concept thing. I can't match my fingers. If it would be like a checkout, if you are like so burned out, I would fail. Ah! Okay, never mind. So in this video we're gonna talk about really high concept idea. I think we're gonna be talking about how to create fantasy creatures for your story. So, fantasy creatures. Raise your hands if you are excited. This is one of the things what is so amazing about fantasy is creating fantasy creatures and characters that are like just unusual, not humans at all, and just all type of crazy, I don't know, creatures. So it's super amazing, super fun, and I'm gonna share with you guys the things that I think is good to keep in mind about these aspects to create them well and well thought out, and things to avoid to not come across a little strange in how you approach it. So let's talk about it. I'm gonna start with the good things, the things that you should probably think about. I have them all here because otherwise I will forget. I don't know, I don't remember myself the good way to do it. I use my notes when I'm creating my creatures too. Oh my god. When I'm filming my dog, she is just chilling on the floor and looking at me every time I look there. She's just chilling. So first thing that I want to say, like, just go crazy. So point one, get it out of the way. Go crazy, enjoy, have fun, do whatever the hell you want. Be as creative as you possibly can with your like first aid. My dog is currently looking like this. It's very hard to concentrate when something like this is happening. Helping me make this video. Gosh. Just go crazy, be creative, start with like the most crazy wild concept. Look, it's not bad like if you do something just very, very simple. Just for example, people have certain hair color in this world, but it just have fun. Just have fun, enjoy, be creative. This is why you chose fantasy, kids. Now enjoy, take the most advantage out of fantasy genre and have fun. As much fun as you possibly can. So this is the first part of the way, and then we go to the serious parts. And point two is make it fit into the world. So when you're creating something, when you got all your crazy ideas out, make it fit into the crazy ideas of your world. So make this creature believably live in this world. How they came to be. Like think about like literally real world is a great example. Humans. We live in this world and how we came to be. We can consider that we became who we are from monkeys, slowly developing because of evolution, and just we got where we are naturally. Or you can just go crazy and say that aliens came here and, you know, did all sorts of shenanigans and we have aliens. You can go with this. Like if you have supportive material to in your story to adjust for this idea, you can also put it there. You can put all sort of things, and you can use like new age stuff that we are actually star seeds or something like this, and we're having this experience in this 3D matrix. Still can work if you explain it well. Actually think about all this theories as a fantasy world setups. You totally can use something like this and make it work. Make sure you fantasy creature, the way they are, the way they look, the way they behave, sound, everything that is strange about them fits with the world they inhabit and makes sense that they were born in this world and existed in this world, lived, died, procreate, and arrived at your story where they are now. Just make sure that matches. So if your place has gravity, make sure that designed to, you know, work with the gravity. Or, you know, just if your place is just all rocks and everybody lives on this vertical surfaces, don't make them just unadaptable to this situation. Don't make them look like they, you know, just humans who landed on this place like 3 years ago and adapted how they could. Literally think about that they're part of this world and they evolved with this world, and the world and them were evolving at the same time in symbiotic relationships. So think about that aspect. The third point is why they're different. It's kind of comes together with the previous one, but still, when you create all your crazy stuff, make sure like crazy ideas and all the creativity, how you could like design them. Now you have to find really good excuse of why they are the way they are, because nobody wants to look at your creature. I mean, maybe somebody wants to, but it's not ideal when people look at your creature and think, oh, so they look like this just because it's cool. So the coolness is the factor why they look like this. It's not ideal when people think like this. It means their purpose is not clear. If you look like, to me, always what stands out is like the creature design. It's not really fantasy, but close. So if I always like think about aliens from aliens. Those guys mesmerize me forever. They're amazing. And you look at them and they kind of belong to what they do. So the way they look kind of transmits the horror of how they, came to be and what they're doing. And they also eerily look like humans. And it's implied that, whoever is the host of when they're born, they're kind of taking some genetical materials from them and adapting to the nature of people they're hosting. Their prey, basically. They're adapting to the world of their prey by using some genetics. And that's why the aliens from the dogs, they work on their fourth, and from humans, they work on their twos, and they kind of have this humanoid vibes. So that's pretty dope. So they look cool. They look amazing. But at the same time, there is a lot of ideas in there and why they look the way they are. And this is just very successful creature design and creature creation. So make sure every creative part of your character really has a purpose and has a reason why it's there, and it's beyond just because it looks cool. Make sure that it looks cool, but also has a major purpose, because that's where you hit the goals. Also, if they are sentient beings, so if, for example, like humanoid beings, like think elves, make sure they have also their own philosophy, their whole culture, and their whole spirituality that also matches who they are and how they look and basically everything around them. And because you cannot just make them look different and just grab human ideas, because otherwise it's not necessarily gonna work. It's just gonna look like, oh, they're like humans, they just look a little bit different. And it's, again, like, you can get away with this, but why get away with something when you can make something stellar? So think about the way they are, and they have their own philosophies and their own logic about them, and the whole world, the way the world works and the way they interact with the world and how they understand the world and how they believe in the world around them works. And I think, like, great idea too, it's not literally character design, but I think it's a really good example for this point is think about Zootopia, the cartoon. There, the idea is, it's not like the creatures do not look crazy, just animals who walk on their twos and just intelligent as human, but the whole world around them is really representing their beliefs about themselves. So the way they build the world, the way they organize their own world, and the things they believe and the things they know about their own world and how they act and what they think is the right and the wrong way to act is really based on who they are. Not about like how humans were and it's totally translated. No, it's really like, obviously it's a lot of like a parody of humans and it's all based on like human world, but it's all adapted to this degree that it only can work with creatures who look like this, with the world who is inhabited by all these anthropomorphic animals. This is a good example how it should work. Like, imagine you a society who looks like your creature and what they're gonna believe in, what they believe they came from, what they think is beautiful. If they have like statues in their gardens, how's this gonna look like? How beauty looks like in their world, in their mind, how ugliness looks in their world, what is considered to be good, bad, or, kind of how they believe about themselves, how they project their own philosophy. I hope that makes sense. So basically, like, connection of their physicality with their philosophy. And philosophy always come together with physicality. Like, humans will not have a philosophy that we have if we look differently. That's, I think, is a very important thing to consider if your creature is sentient. Also another point is how they integrate with the world. Objects that can make to integrate with the world. If they have just 3 fingers, don't make them have the very same things that humans have who have 5 fingers. Just make all these tiny adjustments so that all the objects were always created for people with 3 fingers, or always were created for people with 1 eye, or always were created with people who, for example, are just 3 meters tall. So keep this in mind and just think like how everything, all the small details should be matching how they interact with the world. They created their way of interacting with the world that is so unique to them. It's not adopted from anyone else. It just you have to go and be very creative with how they interact with this and how they learn to interact with the world and what part of the world they even interaction with. Maybe they interaction with things humans would not normally do. Also, if they have some very unusual trait about them, I think it's a good idea to make the whole world have this sort of traits. For example, we humans, we breathe air. So as you can notice, air is a big deal in our world. Even fish underwater, they breathe air. So make sure you have those tiny details going so your creature connects to the world. I think great idea of this is Avatar by James Cameron, where you have all this idea of creatures having more than normal amount of limbs. You have those flying creatures with ikrans, I don't know, they have like 2 kind of wings and they have legs, and then they have horses who also have like 3 pairs of legs legs. They have kind of two in front and one, like two pairs in front and one pair of leg behind. And they have kind of this motif kind of goes through everywhere, and they have this like thing that they connect to everything. And what is like the bond, whatever. Every creature has it. So this is how the world works, not just like the main humanoid creatures how they work, it's the whole world work this way. So this is another way, I think, to think about like creatures like extensions of the world. They have to be extension of some part of the world. They match the world matches them. And another point, if your creatures exist with humans, so you have a fantasy world where those creatures exist with humans, you have to think about how humans came to be and those creatures came to be at the same time, and how both are absolutely logical to be able to come to be at the same time, at the same world, at the same planet, I don't know. So make sure they're just as logical to exist as humans. So that's this kind of trick. I mean, obviously we know that Tolkien is just the example of how every fantasy is done, but I just think dwarves, sure, dwarves and humans make sense, and hobbits too. Elves though, what is the reason for that? Like, what is the reason? Like, why do they need that? Why they have just the only trait is that, and they're pretty, and that, like, how? Like, prettiness makes sense, but like this, except that it was taken from the folklore that existed, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, I'm sorry, like, don't make that. Make sure it makes sense why they are. Like dwarfs and humans, perfect example. Even hobbits, it's just all kind of variation of humanoids, and depending on where they live, they kind of look a little bit different, and the environment they interact with, they look a little different. Works perfectly. Elves, not so much, maybe, I don't know. Now let's talk about things that you might want to consider avoiding when creating your fantasy creatures. They're not, you still can do it, but I just think it's make your story stronger and your storytelling and just your creativity to appear stronger if you follow this not to do guidelines. So first one is kind of like, as I was starting already talking about Lord of the Rings elves, looks without purpose. Don't make creatures look the way they are without a purpose. So they might have some elements that are rudimentary, like for example humans would definitely have some elements in our appearance that were some time ago useful, but now not so much. Like for example, pinky toes, like, you know, they already say, like, for example, if you lose a pinky toe, there is little nothing changes in the way you walk, and that's why a lot of people's pinky toes are really like very weird and they don't do anything and very strange. So it might happen like throughout history, like just their lifestyle change and we don't need certain part of our body anymore. The same with hair, like we don't have as much body hair as we used to before. That's kind of how it works. But keep in mind that overall, if your creatures have, for example, horns, why they have them? What's the purpose? What's the original purpose? For example, if they're like completely civilized society and they had horns years ago, they may have like some rudimentary elements, but they have some big ones, they better be doing something with them. Otherwise, why do they have them? It just doesn't, like, why, how? Connect the dots, make it all work, Also, maybe avoid melodramatic aspects of their appearances. I saw people who would be drawing their original characters online on Instagram. They would create creatures and they have like certain glowing patterns that glow when they're emotional, and when they have some elements where it's kind of, this is how you know they're upset, or this is how they know they're angry, or something like this. Those are aspects, like, they're very melodramatic and they're not really great purpose. Like, make them have patterns that like do something when they feel emotions. Like if they have anger, make those patterns be aggressive and communicate that I'm gonna fight you, or make them like show aggression. This is how, for example, in nature, animals would show, they like, if they have certain patterns on the wings, they would show their wings, or they would just show different colors on their body to communicate aggression, hostility, just showing who is stronger. Or, you know, birds, they show who is more attractive by like the way how colorful their plumage is. Plumage? I think it's plumage. I hope it is plumage. I hope it's not foliage. I hope I'm not confusing the two. I think it's plumage for birds. This is a cool idea of colors, make it communicate, but make it more of a logical way. Again, makes it works with the world, not make it create a melodrama instead, you know? I can totally imagine how, for example, this idea can work to create a lot of melodrama and a lot of emotional moments, but it just doesn't make really much sense for survival reasons, because a lot of our appearance has to do with survival, with how we really communicate survival things with people first. Not like I'm upset, but more like I'm angry, I'm gonna mess you up right now. You better not not mess with me. Keep that in more logical way rather than just think about, oh, it's gonna be a good moment without these characters if they're breaking up, but this one has, you can understand that they feel strong emotions. This is bad base to start with your creatures. Think more survival, physiology, how they blend with the world, essential things. Another thing maybe not to do is to create odd weaknesses. A lot of the time I see people like creating creatures, but they have this one weakness, and it's all created kind of like Superman kryptonite effect. So they have this creature that is so powerful, but they have this weakness, and it creates a good moment sometimes in the plot where this character just cannot do something because they have this specific weakness. Don't create weakness for the creature to make it just a plot point sometime later. Or if the creature really has some weakness, the creatures on its own have some weakness. Make sure they balance this weakness. Like, humans have a lot of weaknesses, but we balance them out. Like, we cannot run really fast. We have cars. We get really cold. We don't have like any hair to protect us. We build houses. We create heating systems. We totally look through it. We cannot see maybe that well. We have telescope, binoculars, we have cameras, we can do a lot of things. If we fight, we're not that deadly. We created weapons. So it's, kind of like usually when people have weakness, there is a solution if they're sentient. So don't create weakness just so it creates a good plot points and a good drama moments, because will be question asked why they didn't think about it before. If they always had this weakness, I'm pretty sure it's not a bad idea to work around this weakness somehow. That might be a good idea to consider and maybe not do. And the last thing that is very, very prevalent, don't create fantasy creature just for your main character to have exotic love interest. Don't do that. That's just strange. Don't. And just, it's the same. It's kind of like melodramatic. You probably can create a lot of fiction out of this. Maybe you have, a lot of people might like it, but it's not top-notch storytelling. It's not like best quality creative work. It's not the best quality writing. Just, there is a different type of like creative things. Some are done to just people just consume and they just enjoy it and they go forward. But I think if you put more thought than this in your story and more thought than this in creating your creatures, that your story is going to be so much more richer, so much more enjoyable, and have this reread value. So don't just do that. Don't use the exoticism and like unusualness of the creature just to make your main character feel special and that they got something very special. Keep that in mind. I think it's just a good idea to have, and because sometimes it feels like we're having self-inserts or protagonists. It can't, like, it happens, it slips in, and we don't wanna because like it's also very noticeable what the love interest, our protagonist encounters, because it's that feeling like, ooh, you're kind of living your protagonist's life through them, aren't you? So avoid maybe doing something like this. Basically avoid some sort of melodrama, self-insert effects. And another point actually about this, don't create creatures that are so perfect and so beautiful and so amazing and they are one of your protagonists, because they have to have real strength and real weaknesses. They have to be just feel normal, not perfect. If something is really perfect and really, gorgeous, amazing, beautiful, and there's no conflict about them being that, so so it's also our protagonist, it also feels a little bit self-inserting, and just the story becomes less rich and less smart and less complex. It can be done something like this for entertainment, but I really think it's gonna have more value if you're gonna put more thought and more care and more realism into it. And just keep in mind that even though your fantasy world is created and even though your fantasy creatures are created, they still have to have this degree of realness and workableness. They have to be believable that they exist. They have to be believable that they are the way they are. So I hope those ideas can really help you to get started. Obviously, as with all the advices that I give around this, like world building too, I don't want to give you concrete advices. It's just strange. It's a very creative thing. But I hope like those guidelines that I gave you might help you start thinking what might work, what might not work. And if you think I'm wrong or if you have your own ideas and suggestions, please let me know in the comments down below. I hope this video was interesting for you guys, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you so much, guys.